Going live. Three. What's going on, everybody? This is Moose at CFB_Moose on Twitter. I'm the host here, co-founder of one of the co-founders of Occupy Fantasy. We're from OccupyFantasy.com, at Occupy Fantasy, all your social media apps. Here with Garrett, one of our NBA writers at GStroms99 on Twitter. Garrett, what's up, man? How you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. How about you?
Doing good. It's been a fun day. Friday, decent weather outside. Took the dog for a long walk. Now I'm ready here to break down some NBA and make some NBA lines. Hopefully, win some money tonight.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Definitely. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this tweeted out here. And while we're doing that, we're gonna be here for about 30 minutes or so. So if you have any questions, definitely go ahead and ask. Again, Garrett is super knowledgeable on NBA. So he's definitely one of the guys that you need to ask if you have questions about NBA, making your lineups, this player, that player, type of lineup strategies, etc. What you see on screen here is the NBA Daily Plug with the help of Garrett and our other NBA writer, Boyle. They write the NBA Daily Plug, and it's a fantastic resource. Lays out their top plays, their cores, and different lineup strategies. Garrett, I'll kick it off to you. There's definitely I don't know the right word for this, but definitely some interesting way to play the slate. It seems like there's a couple teams that you just need to just jam in no matter what contest or type you're playing.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty spread out at the beginning of the day, but I mean, as the day went on, we started to see a lot of injuries pop up in the Atlanta New Orleans game. We have Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, and Josh Hart all out for the Pelicans. And for Atlanta, we have DeAndre Hunter, John Collins, Trey Young, and Danilo Gallinari all sitting out as well. So four big players sitting out for both teams. It's going to spike up a lot of value on the slate. So you really don't have to look too far for your value on in lower high risk contests.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we go through here, I'm going to scroll into the plug, which if we look, yeah, you see basically your entire core has just changed since starting the thing. But I do
Yeah.
want to talk about, you talked about here in red with all these Pelican guys being out. We have some new core plays on the slate. Um, but speak about any of these other if then sections. So Zach Vine, Steph Curry, etc.
Yeah. So Zach Levine, he was out last game as well. Vucevic, the new Chicago Bull, hit 5.5 times value in that game. He averages 1.41 DraftKings points per minute with Levine off the floor, although that is a very small sample size. Vucevic would be a very intriguing center play. He would be intriguing pivot off of a guy like Clint Capella or Robert Williams if you're looking at him. The only risk with Vucevic, obviously, is he's going up against Rudy Gobert and the Utah Jazz, who are currently 14-point favorites. Lauri Markkanen would also become a high risk option, obviously, because he is an offensively minded player. So he won't really grab a ton of boards that often. He'll get a lot of his points off of his shots. And his price is pretty modest. So he has a high ceiling, but he also has a very low floor for Lauri Markkanen and could see limited time due to a blowout. The next guy would be Domantas Sabonis, which is a pretty big one. Malcolm Brogdon and Miles Turner would become very strong low risk options if Sabonis is out. Brogdon handles almost 20% usage and 1.3 DK points per minute with Sabonis off the floor. Miles Turner actually leads the team in DK point production per minute with Sabonis off the floor, which is pretty surprising. But he gets a lot of usage with Sabonis off the floor, and he would become another great center option to pivot off of guys like Clint Capella. And
Yeah, no,
then, yeah,
go ahead.
oh, sorry. And then the last one's John Wall, who doesn't really have as big of a fantasy impact. Kevin Porter Jr.'s price is up, and Christian Woods is already a low risk option. That would just get boosted up a little bit more.
Definitely, yeah. I do want to, just talk about, you and I were talking about it a little bit before we went live, and I'm going to bring up the switch over to the Occupy model here. I have it
Hmm.
sorted by DraftKings value. I mean, the same thing's pretty much for FanDuel value as well. There's so many. cheap guys that are in this 15 to 25 plus DK value range that um, I think you have to go stud heavy here, and then just whoever you think your favorite studs are, jam them in, and then just rotate around with all these New Orleans Pacers, Atlanta guys, and just because if it'll fit, you can make it fit. There's so many guys here that are cheap that have such high values, projected for 30 plus minutes. I definitely think that's the way to go this slate.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, stacking in those New Orleans, Atlanta guys is definitely the way to go. You see James Johnson, Eric Bledsoe, both at the top with over 20 DK value. I mean, looking at our updated cores, Eric Bledsoe, James Johnson, both in the updated cores. You also see, guy like Bogdanovich at 15.7. He becomes an insanely strong play. We saw him last night drop. I believe he produced somewhere around 45 DK points with just John Collins and DeAndre Hunter out. Um, and then Kira Lewis and Wes Iwundu, they're great pay down options. If you need more pay down options. They have really high upside compared to their 3,000 and 3,700 salary on DraftKings.
Yeah, definitely. And I know we don't have our projected ownership in here, but just to put you on the spot, what do you think some of these cheap guys are going to be projected at in some of these? They'll probably be stupid highly owned in like cash games, but what do you think they're going to be
Yeah.
in tournaments?
In tournaments, it's tough to say. I think James Johnson, after his performance last night, he produced, I believe it was 28 DraftKings points last night at minimum price.
Hmm.
Um, so I think people are going to see that and immediately go right back to him. I would be surprised if it's under 40% in tournaments
Wow.
because it's just such a plug-in. I believe Eric Bledsoe also will see probably 20+% ownership. I believe Bogdanovich will see probably 30%, maybe even more. Clint Capella also will see probably 25%. I think there will be a lot of ownership with these Atlanta and New Orleans guys. I don't think people will really shy away from it too much just because
Hmm.
they don't have anyone else.
Yeah, and that's going to be tough because it's almost like they're not studs, so they're definitely prone to, sucking and not performing well. So it's
Yeah.
definitely a fine line. But again, in high risk, I think you just jam these players in as well. I'm gonna flip over to the flip
Mhm.
side. Let's take a look at the OF index. Giannis, Cat, Luca, De'Aaron Fox, and Damian Lillard are 12 and above in an OF index. And that's a proprietary metric here at Occupy Fantasy. You can check out the full model at occupyfantasy.com. Of
Yes.
these players, what do you think? What do you think about their projected ownership and how you should be playing them? Uh, I mean, I think they're going to be a little bit higher owned than what they normally would
Yep.
be, just because there's so much value on the slate. But I mean, I can see some of these players getting 30+%.
Yeah, so I was talking to one of our members today about Giannis, and I didn't love Giannis at first. I really
Hmm.
didn't love him too much. I told him I'm just like I think that he was trying to tell me Giannis seems like a strong play, and in his opinion it was, in my opinion it wasn't. But I told him I think that if we see more value, we'll see Giannis's percentage start to increase a lot. So I think Giannis will probably be one of the higher owned guys on the slate now because people will be like, all right, we got all this value. Might as well plug in the guy with the highest ceiling on the slate, which is
Yeah.
Giannis. And it's Giannis every slate basically, unless it's some kind of unlikely scenario.
Hmm.
Um, so I think Giannis will be one of those guys. I think Luka will also carry some really high ownership just simply because his price is up there as well, and people might end up with that much salary left over. And then a little bit lower than what we were talking about, Clint Capella is going to carry some high ownership at the center spot. He's one of our top plays in the plug, and he's just been really amazing with John Collins out, let alone with Trey Young out now too.
Yeah.
He's going to carry some heavy ownership.
Exactly. Yeah. And with so many players with this huge ownership. Cody makes a point. He says, it looks like everyone's in on the same plays. And so, how are you getting different? Where are these guys that aren't projected to be 20 to 50% owned? Uh, who are some sneaky plays that you can fit in to help get yourself different?
Yeah. So one thing, we always talk about in NBA. Usually if someone's chalk, it's good chalk. But obviously in high risk, you got to get different somewhere. You don't want to get different everywhere. You want to
Yeah.
get different somewhere. Because if your lineup ends up being full of guys that are 5 to 10% owned, most likely it's not a great lineup.
Yeah.
Um, but in my opinion, CJ McCollum is a guy that will now go much lower owned with all of this information coming out, and he's been on fire for Portland. And Portland's gonna have to, they're gonna have to play hard to keep up with this Milwaukee team.
Hmm.
And it has a 240 over under, which I believe is the only game now that's over. Oh, it's one of the only two games now that's over 230 in terms of over under.
Mm.
So his scoring can definitely make you different. I also looking at the model right now, I think John Morant, he was a great play to start off the day, and I think he'll go very overlooked now. I could be wrong, but I think he could be very overlooked now just with, other guys, Eric Bledsoe and all these other people coming into play. I think that people will kind of just forget about John Morant.
Yeah, he's definitely somebody that could potentially slip to the radar.
Hmm.
CA has a question here. Says, could you mix in New Orleans and Atlanta rather than playing three or four Pelicans?
Yeah, absolutely. I would even say you can fit in three New Orleans and three New Orleans, two Atlanta, three Atlanta, two New Orleans guys. You can stack this game, I think. And I mean, it's more of a low risk approach because they're going to carry heavy ownership.
Hmm.
But you can definitely do that in your low risk contest, even in high risk if you're one of those risk averse type players who doesn't like to, get too bold in their lineups.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so just some great questions and comments, Cody and CA. If you're watching here and you have any more questions, definitely go ahead and ask. We'll be here till 5:30, which is about another 15 minutes or so. Again, I'm Moose, co-founder, data guru over here at Occupy Fantasy. Garrett is our NBA writer, NBA aficionado, satellite strategy expert. So if you have any questions about the satellite strategies, well, definitely go ahead and ask him. Which I will flip over, Garrett.
Yeah.
What satellites have you been targeting lately, and have you been successful at it?
Honestly, I haven't been seeing too many or that have been intriguing me lately. I haven't been going
Hmm.
after as many tickets lately. I've been playing a little bit lighter because I like to go heavier when satellites are available, and I
Yeah.
usually attack more on FanDuel than I do DraftKings, because that's just the site I play on more. Um, so FanDuel hasn't really been offering too much lately. I played the MLB slate yesterday for opening day. Don't know if I'm gonna go back to playing MLB satellites
Yeah.
anytime soon. It
It's
didn't
rough.
really go my way. Um, some you find the sports that you like, you find the sports that you don't. I think I can assume that MLB just isn't my type of sport. Um, but I mean, I've started to look around a little bit more on FanDuel. I actually started going for tickets again to the next MLB squeeze, even after what happened yesterday.
Yeah.
Um, just because I don't know, the satellite strategy works so well. Even if you don't end up, profiting, you're most likely going to make most of that money back. So
Yeah.
it's a great strategy because you have a nice chance to win big, but you have a very low chance to lose everything.
Yeah, exactly. Like whereas on a GPP, if you put in
You
50 entries and you have a chance, you really have a chance to go 0 for 50 and lose
exactly.
100% of your bankroll. Whereas with satellite strategy, you're going to lose like 30 to 50% at a worst case scenario.
Exactly, and you spend a lot less money on entry fees. So
Exactly.
it's just really good. Yesterday I mean I didn't blank yesterday. I mean I won a little bit of money. I ended with a little bit of a loss. Um, but it could have been a lot worse. And so, I'm still going after that MLB squeeze. I'm going to try it one more time because, a sample size of one try isn't really worth making a whole decision on. So I'm going to give it another shot, I think.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. You need to do that, or you can switch to the KBO and stack the dinos and
Oh,
give me another
yeah,
reason to
that'll be
wear
great
the helmet.
waking up at 2 a.m. to make 150 lineups with the Densi Dinos.
No, they start at 1 o'clock
Oh, thank
tomorrow.
God.
One
Okay.
a.m. tomorrow, so we're fine. We're fine.
Okay. 1 a.m.'s okay then.
Yeah, definitely. It's those like 4 a.m.s where it's too late to stay up, way too early
I
to get up in the
remember
morning.
setting my alarm. for 3:30 in the morning to make sure all my players were actually playing in a game. I felt like such a putz.
I mean, it was rough when basically my
It was
sleep schedule was on like
it was
South
all
Korean time.
reliant on Korean baseball.
Yeah, it was Korean baseball and League of Legends, so I would just sleep during the day, wake up at like
Oh my
10
gosh.
at night, and just
I just
grind it
didn't
out.
sleep because like I can't sleep during the day. So then when it
Yeah,
got to night, I'm like, all right, time for League of Legends, and I'm like, all right, done League of Legends, time for KBO. I'm like,
yeah, that was fun. So, yeah, I'm curious if anybody here in the chat's gonna be playing KBO because they actually do have some pretty decent satellites.
I do.
Yeah,
Mm.
so let's kick it back over to NBA as well, though, because like, not
That's
much
more
else I
my
can tell you.
expertise.
Exactly, yeah. I'm gonna switch back over to the plug. And Garrett, if there's any position players that you want to talk about that you wrote up.
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, a lot of stuff has been kind of removed because of all the injuries that occurred on the slate. But I think one that still remains pretty relevant is the shooting guard spot. All of these guys still seem like very good plays to me, even with all of the injuries going on. Fred VanVleet's the cover guy. He's in our core still.
Hmm.
Kyle Lowry's out. Fred VanVleet has insane upside. Um, I'm not. Let me double check again what he did last game. Obviously, last game wasn't, a normal game for Van Vliet. He had 4 blocks in the first quarter.
Jesus.
He finished with 52 DraftKings points.
I thought you were going to say he
And
finished with
he,
52 blocks. I was like, that's incredible.
I think if we did that, we'd be like building a statue for him.
Yeah.
But he played 39 minutes. He shot poorly, and he still finished with 52 DraftKings points. I love him tonight. I think that can be pretty easily said. We already mentioned CJ McCollum. He's more of a high risk play now. His upside is still there. Um, and then Gary Trent is another. He gets overlooked because people are attacking Fred VanVleet, OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam. But Gary Trent's been amazing since Kyle Lowry's went down. Last game, he had 40 DraftKings points. He took 22 shot attempts in 36 minutes. He
Wow.
doesn't do much else on the floor, but he can score really fast. So he definitely has a much higher upside than his
Hmm.
what is it, 5'6", 5'2" salaries. And then Marcus Smart, he's kind of taken a back seat now. I think there's a lot of other good shooting guard options. But if you do want to get different, Marcus Smart has a great matchup. He has a good matchup tonight. So that's kind of why Marcus Smart's there. His upside's high, but he also carries risk now compared to all the other options that you have. And then Svi Malajchuk, or however you say his name, I still can't pronounce it, and I've been doing this NBA stuff for like 4 years. Um, 3-7 on FanDuel is a joke, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Obviously everyone's gonna go after other guys now. But Svi Malajchuk is still a great option on FanDuel if you want to get different, because
Hmm.
people still might not play him because now they're going to be like, all right, we got Fred VanVleet, Nikhil Alexander-Walker, Gary Trent, um, Bogdan Bogdanovic is a small forward, so that doesn't matter. But you
Yeah.
still have 3 great options there, so he's going to carry a little bit lower ownership. And OKC has, I believe, 2 guards available. They have Theo Maledon and they have Svi Malajchuk. And last game, Svi played 36 minutes and produced 37 DraftKings points. So even on DraftKings, I still love the guy. Says a lot about his FanDuel pricing too.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. So definitely going to be an interesting night. Garrett, we got 10 minutes left. Anything else you want to talk about? I guess we can maybe talk about I don't know, maybe what some like the lineup construction is. We talked about playing some stars, playing a bunch of value plays, but is there any
Yeah.
other way to build lineups tonight instead of that stars and scrubs approach?
There definitely is. I mean, you can completely avoid all the if you want, you can avoid the scrubs from this Atlanta and Pelicans teams.
Hmm.
You can go a more mid-tier approach because you still got guys like Alexander Walker, Bledsoe, Bogdanovich. They're all mid-tier guys,
Hmm.
and so you can go a very mid-tier approach here. And I think that's for the most part what people are going to do because you still want to get guys like Fred VanVleet in there. You still want to get some of those high beneficiary players that are a little bit more expensive.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I started building a DraftKings lineup, and I mean, frankly, I think looking at my DraftKings lineup, I have one guy under 5K.
Jeez.
I have one. So
Okay.
I still have a ton of those beneficiaries from injuries. Actually, they're all beneficiaries from injuries in my
Hmm.
DraftKings lineup. So um you really don't need to go crazy with it. You don't need to throw in three guys who are 3K. You don't need to throw in Kira Lewis, James
Yeah.
Johnson, um and Wessa Wundu into the same lineup, and then throw in Giannis, Luca, and Cat. You don't need to do
Yeah.
that. You just throw in players you feel comfortable playing because most likely not all those guys are going to hit, more
Yeah.
likely than not. A few of them will definitely hit. It just depends which ones.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Cody has a question here. It says power forward is where I am lost at on FanDuel.
Mhm.
So I'll scroll down to the power forward section here in the plug. If you just want to take a couple of minutes and talk about what your strategy would be on FanDuel for power forwards.
Yeah, so obviously the power forward position has changed up a little bit with all this news.
Hmm.
James Johnson is the guy I'm basically locking in on this slate at power forward. He's in the core for us now, due to all the Pelicans news. He's a guy I'm locking in basically all my lineups. Last night, let me just double check what he did. This was just with um all out. And now Josh Hart's out too, who also plays some of the forward spot for the Pelicans. Last night, James Johnson played 28 minutes and produced 29 FanDuel points.
Hmm.
So that's almost 10 times his FanDuel value. So that right there is a guy I'm basically locking in for FanDuel. And then all these other power forwards that we have, Christian Wood, Pascal Siakam, PJ Washington, Isaiah Roby, all very strong options. Personally, PJ Washington, he has an extremely high ceiling, but he also has a very low floor. So he's gonna get a pretty good amount of ownership tonight.
Hmm.
But he also has a very wide amount of outcomes with him. Pascal Siakam and Isaiah Roby will probably be two of the higher owned power forwards on the night because they're in situations where they're benefiting from injuries. Siakam without Lowry, Roby without Horford, SGA, and about half the rest of the team as well. So for me, I'm locking in James Johnson and I'm playing one of those other power forwards that we have in our power forward spot.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so great. I mean, great analysis there, Garrett and Cody. Again, if you're still lost, I think you're in the Discord. You can hit up Garrett or any of us, and we'll definitely go ahead and help
Yeah,
you out.
absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. So, um, Garrett, I'll kick it back to you one last time. I'll show the picture up here. Might end just a little bit early because we kind of pretty much hit everything. No one really had any
Yeah.
questions. So if you have any last lingering thoughts or anything else you want to add, now the floor is yours.
I guess my last piece of advice is, I mean, tonight you just got to keep an eye out. There's still plenty of other injuries that still need to be solved. Domantas Sabonis, John Wall, and Zach LaVine. So you got to keep your eye out for that.
Hmm.
Um, you know, our core is updated, and I think even with those injuries coming out, the core will maybe slightly change, but not change a ton. So keep an eye out on our core. All of our top plays are still great options on this slate. They're just taking a little bit of a back seat compared to those guys that we listed in the core, which, you want to attack that New Orleans, Atlanta, those two New Orleans, Atlanta teams. You want to get your Toronto guys in there, obviously. So, just be smart about it. Don't go crazy with all the value and stuff. Don't throw in like three guys that are 3K and hope for the best.
Yeah, definitely. Cody says so. So you don't do any Giannis at power forward?
So Giannis, he's also I mean, if you can fit him, yes.
Yeah.
Giannis is obviously he's always a viable option in fantasy. Tonight, with all the value on the slate, you can obviously make a lineup where you can fit in Giannis. And I think on FanDuel, that is definitely a case. Giannis can easily be fit into a lineup. On DraftKings, it might be a little bit different. Like I said, on my DraftKings lineup, it was a little bit different. I didn't get anywhere near up to Giannis, like other people might.
Hmm.
Um, FanDuel, I think you definitely can.
Yeah.
I think Giannis is definitely a guy you can get in there. I also think that you can get up to guys like Jason Tatum if you want against a rough Houston team. You can get to Julius Randle, who's going up against a poor Mavericks defense. So you got plenty of options up there at the elite power forward option.
Yeah, cool, cool. See, it says, what about Wiggins? What's your thoughts on Wiggins?
Yeah, so Wiggins is also a strong play tonight. We have Steph Curry's if then out there. We have Wiggins. He becomes a low risk option. His price tag limits his options, but he has had a lot of success with Steph Curry being out. We just didn't feel like he was core worthy, and he wasn't a top play before the slate started, which is
Hmm.
why he's not in the plug. But he is in the if then, and he is a viable low risk option tonight due to how successful he's been without Curry.
Yeah, definitely. Cool, cool. So that'll pretty much do it. Again, if you all are new here or if not and you like what you saw here, definitely go ahead and hit that like button down below. Hit the subscribe button if you're not already to be notified of any new videos we publish or anytime we go live. Then if you want to go ahead and join the Discord I mentioned earlier, hit that join button. Pay, I think it's $2.99 a month, and you will get access to our Discord channel where all of us here at Occupy and all the other members here are chatting it up across all different types of sports. Absolutely fantastic resource. But until next time, Moose and Garrett here from Occupy Fantasy. Have a good night.
You guys.